Hello, you're welcome to Time-With-Flora, where we talk, learn and grow together. In the studio with me today, I have Eziafakaku Nwokolo. She is, I'll call you Ezi, you know I like to call you Ezi.
Yeah.
Ezi is a behavior analyst.
Yes.
And you have a very robust profile actually. I'm going to read out a few things and have you, tell us all about it. She's actually studying for her PhD, but that's the very least of the things that she's up to at the moment. So you are involved in developmental disabilities and the autism spectrum disorders.
Yes.
It stems from your own personal experience of having a child of your own that had autism and your experience of that. It says due to the lack of professionals in Nigeria, as per your experience, you retired from your full-time job in 2014 and started training to acquire the required skills that would also enable you to provide professional services, not just to your daughter, but to other families as well. You've gone on to become the first Nigerian to have the credentials of Behaviour Analyst Certification, of the Behaviour Analyst Certification Board, or the acronym BACB, and I know you'll tell us a little bit more about that. In August 2014, the same year, you became a registered behaviour technician, and you've also studied for your MSc in applied behaviour analysis, and I mean you have so many credentials here that I can't even go through. I know that you'll talk more about them. You are currently studying for your PhD. You are a member of the Association of Behaviour Analysts International, which is a UK-based society, as well as a member of the Association of Behaviour Analysis in Nigeria, and a faculty consultant at the International School of Disability Studies here in Nigeria. You are very welcome.
Thank you.
We are friends, but you are someone that's really doing amazing work. As I said, you're studying for your PhD at the moment, and I just really don't know where you find the time. You have an agency that you are running on the basis of your current state of play in terms of the credentials that you now hold. You're teaching, and you're also consulting, and you're working with families. So you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's going to be quite insightful to hear about you. Can you just explain a bit more before we take a step back into how you actually got into this?
Yeah.
Could you just clarify a bit more what the BACB, what that means? Because I'm assuming it's not something that everybody has. I think you said that you're probably the first trained technician here in Nigeria. So just in comparison, I guess, to other technicians, operators that are here in Nigeria, how are you different from them?
Okay, so BACB, as the acronym is the board that actually credentials internationally behavior analysts. They train in the science of applied behavior analysis. Okay, so ABA you would probably have heard or not, but a couple of people in Nigeria would have heard ABA in connection with interventions for autism. Now what they say is that ABA is a treatment for autism, but ABA is actually a science. So BACB is a governing body that basically accredits every single person. When you do the board exam, there's an examination, and then you pass, then you can become either an assistant behavior analyst or a behavior analyst, a full-fledged one like myself, or even at the doctoral level.
Wow. And so there's something about identifying that someone has a particular disorder, as well as identifying where or specifically what is peculiar to their disorder. So that's kind of, I think in autism we talk about, where on the spectrum you are. So can you just kind of bring that home to us as kind of lay people, what we mean by that and where you come in terms of what you do? Okay,
so what it is that here, well, not just in Nigeria, but where in Nigeria, so the focus would be in Nigeria. So what it is that a lot of people have symptoms. They kind of see, oh, my child isn't speaking, my child isn't walking or doing, but predominantly when they don't have speech. they kind of rush off to speech therapists and that sort of thing. But that's really a symptom. The lack of speech is just one aspect. So within autism, as a spectrum, you have those who are vocal, what we call vocal able, and those that are non-vocal. And now to determine where an individual falls on the spectrum, you've got to not just do a screening at first, but then you go on to do a diagnosis.
Yes.
Okay? So the diagnosis will then let us know where that individual falls on the spectrum. So it's not sufficient of its own to go say, oh, a child has autism because you screen them with whatever tool is out there. And so that's where I come in as well. I am trained to do the diagnosis as well. Okay, and the gold standard tool for doing that is what's called the ADOS for short, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule. I think there's one other person I know that does that in Nigeria, but the challenge is getting the kit, the tool, because it's quite expensive. But yeah, so that's what basically I do. The behavior analyst bit of it just kind of follows on from that, because after the diagnosis or the assessment is done, then you've got to have somebody who is able to draw a proper plan, that intervention plan that needs to then be implemented, and whoever is implementing it needs to be guided to do the right thing. So that's where I come in as well. So not just to diagnose, but to also assess and draw up a plan for them to follow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us about your story. How did everything start? You know, your daughter now
she's
with autism,
18.
She's now 18.
Yeah, she's
so
18.
could you share just a few highlights of your story?
Okay,
and
so
how you got into this play?
So me, the finicky Ming, I usually graph all the children. You've met one of them as well. I graph them not just for the physical development, meeting their milestones, but every other thing, because that's what my dad did for all of us. And so when she was about 2+, I noticed that there were lots of other developmental milestones that she wasn't meeting. All the physical ones, height, weight, were going on fine, but when it came to the cognitive ones and social skills, there were deficits. And as soon as I noticed that, I mean, I prayed like everybody in Nigeria prays, but I mean, beyond prayer, we need to get working. So went over to the doctor, then her, what do you call them again, the pediatrician, who did an assessment, a screening with what I know now, and she goes, oops, okay, your child's got autism based on the screening. I had no idea then, but suffice to say that we got to work, and we worked with the resources that were in country, and well, everybody contributed something to the best of their ability. And then we also traveled, went to UK, went to all the South Africa, did everything, but it was still basically the same thing, you know, people just working within the limits of their ability. And so I figured, rather than keep complaining, and I'd done a bit of research, and my husband was reading as well, I thought, okay, speech, that's the focus. And then I called up a couple of universities, both in Canada, the US, trying to get into speech. And one retired professor in Canada, God bless him, after he read, because I had typed up, this is my little, what do you call it now? Basically what I'm looking for, I typed up this thing, introducing myself, and I was just emailing it to everybody all over the world. And after he read it, he's like, go to bacb.com. And that's how I got to know about BACB, that he thinks this might be what I'm looking for. And so as soon as I got to the bacb.com and read up, and I was like, wow, exactly. The science of ABA was all encompassing, and that's what BACB was all about. And I'm like, fantastic, this is it. And so I just started looking for approved and accredited institutions where I could then take up the learning, and the training. And there happened to be somebody that had been accredited to run it in Nigeria, and they still are. So I started with them here in Nigeria in 2014. Did the first RBT, was called the Registered Behavior Technician, just so I was really convinced that that was the way to go. And as soon as I did that 40-hour training, I was hooked. I knew that was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so I went on to do the board certified assistant behavior analyst coursework, did the board exam as I was doing the masters, because there was no point stopping. At this point, I'm like, if I have to do this, just go all the way. So I literally went back to school, and so did the undergrad coursework, which is the BCA BA.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished that, and we had to do supervised field hours as well, where we work with kids one-to-one, I took off to do the masters.
Right.
There was no point waiting. So I went on, did the masters in the UK University of Kent. While I was doing that, I did the board exam for the BCAB. Passed that, and then finished off my masters, and then went on to do the next exam. It's been 5 years of schooling.
Wow.
And then did the next exam to be the BCBA, and then that's how come I'm the only one in Nigeria. Passed the exam, came back home, but before then I decided, why not, if not, just start a PhD. And now I'm torturing myself and wondering.
Wow.
So, I guess to the point of how it's helped my daughter, I guess, is just being able to use what I know now to recruit the resources that she needs. She went up to year 10 in Nigeria, but I realized that there was nobody that was going to be able to follow on after her 10th year. It was time to move on to an environment where the next level of support was available. And so we did that. But I'm having to stay in Nigeria because not only do I love my country, but I think that to have somebody on ground that wouldn't allow people to go through what I went through initially, especially younger parents, is really important. And also to provide the service at a cheaper cost, because it's not cheap to get proper services. It's not.
No, I know that.
It's
I
not.
know that.
So, I mean, that's why I'm here at home. I mean, I could run off, but what would be the point?
So is your daughter here in Nigeria?
No. She's in Canada.
Okay.
She's in Canada. And I mean, she's doing quite well, I must say. So from being non-vocal, had absolutely no word, and she was a bag of behavior. All, the tantrum, everything. But glory to God for answered prayers, but more so having done the necessary, having, put her feet, mine and daddy's and everybody else's down, just to ensure that she was moving forward. So
really great, really good. Ezzy, I'd certainly like to get your opinion on this. Given where we are today, 2014, and probably some years before, I'm also, as you know, a parent with a child that has special needs, and I've certainly gone through my own peculiar journeys and challenges in terms of getting the right sort of intervention, getting the appropriate kind of educational support and so on and so forth. Where do you feel we are at right here in Nigeria in terms of our education system and also support services for young people with special needs, with disabilities? Where do you feel we are at in Nigeria today?
Okay, so in terms of special needs generally, I think there's still some ways to go. Schools are offering what they know how to offer, because we have people who've gone out and done training, and they're like special needs teachers and all that. But I think it goes beyond just the training. Training is good, but then what do you bring to the table after your training? And so in terms of schools and teachers, I think it's the same problem that's out there with services applies to teachers. People don't quite understand. Again, it's my opinion. And so they are offering the education in the light of what they know, not what should be happening. And education for these set of children or individuals should be specific. So it's tailor-made for each child, because none of them is the same. And so it goes back to having a proper assessment, having that diagnosis done, And so you tease out that individual's peculiar needs and then put things in place, the support in place to address them and help them progress.
Yeah.
But again, parents come in. I hold parents accountable because they tend to pander to whatever society is saying to us. So again, I break it down in terms of, they say at the age of 6 or your child needs to be in school and that sort of thing. But why does your child need to be in school? Is your child school ready? So why don't you focus on getting your child school ready in terms of the behavior and all that before you then go into school, and leave what the environment says alone. Okay, so if we have them school ready, it actually should, in my opinion, alleviate what the school is not able to do.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I use my daughter again as an example. She had 3 full years of intervention at home, one-to-one, before she got into school. So all that going to school with aid wasn't really there. And then she was also in a school where another parent pulled a lot of weight and things to get an external person coming, and we were paying the school extra for that support.
Yeah.
So that's another way to go. But leaving us as we are right now, I kind of have issues with, but then again, it falls back to the parents, quite honestly.
Yes. It always does ultimately, doesn't it?
Yes. You need to prepare your child before they go into school. We don't have educators who are sufficiently prepared to deal with this population. Our children, yours, mine, and those that are coming up right now.
And they will,
Yeah.
They will. I mean, that's the reality. That's the
and
reality.
the services aren't there yet. They're not quite what they should be. There are lots of people out there who say they've got the training, but there's a whole lot of gap as well. Okay, I'm not going to start naming names and say this, but if they really sit back and say, again, in my field, where you say, oh, I'm doing ABA, I'm doing therapy, I'm doing this, what are you doing exactly? There are lots of people who are freelancing, who have no supervision, who don't quite know what they're doing, or some of them have supervision, but who's supervising them? Whoever is supervising is doing that within the extent of their knowledge. Okay? And so parents are still at the mercy of all of these people out there. Let's just put it like that.
I mean, I guess as much as possible, really, we should all try and keep ourselves educated so that we can watch out for, the indicators that tell us that, okay, I'm dealing with, a school or an individual or an organization that really genuinely knows what they're doing. So let's just come on to, because we're coming towards the end, but I'd certainly like you to talk a bit about your agency called Shades of Light?
Yes.
Shades of Light. So can you tell us about that, what you do, and what have been some of the challenges with that in terms of really being able to deliver what the intention is that you're all about?
So what it is that we currently diagnose and we do assessments for individuals, and after the assessment, then we then go on to write up plans for intervention one-on-one, be it at home or at the center. Okay, right now what we're doing is have all of the children that we've assessed come into the center, because it's easier to get instructional control and that sort of thing, build all that rapport and then get them going. So we do one-to-one. We have board approved registered behavior technicians, RBTs, who get supervised what they're doing. I write up the programs for the intervention and they implement. And then I've got people who are BCA BAs. They've completed the coursework and then they're going to sit for their exams. I've also had people who've come who are RBTs who have gone, and they're all freelancing and they're supposed to be supervised. So again, I'm not going to be in their business, but basically for us, we have a limit as well to the number of children, and I do that because by the ethics of code of conduct, professional code of conduct, or BACB. For myself, being the only BA, there's a certain number of people that I can take on to be effective. It's not about the volume, but effectiveness.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, listen, thanks very much for today. What we'll do is we'll make sure that we share all the details of Shade of Life, your organization, so that if people do want to get in contact with you, they can. We'll make sure all the handles and everything are shared. It's been a pleasure, Ezi. Thank you so much for your time and great work that you're doing. Thank you for being on the Time-With-Flora show.
Thank you for having me.
Learn and grow together, and hopefully we'll get to speak again and hear more about what